Britain, a wild island on Europe's far edge, windswept, rain-soaked, ancient. For thousands of years, waves of humanity washed across its shores, leaving clues in bones, artefacts, and language. But when modern science finally turned its eyes toward the genetics of the British Isles, something extraordinary happened. The familiar story of Britain began to unravel. Timeline after timeline collapsed, assumptions shattered, new truths emerged from ancient genomes. Truths older than Stonehenge, older than the Celts, older even than the island itself. This is the British DNA mystery, told not by kings or chronicles, but by the silent testimony of the dead. To begin, we must return to a world that no longer exists. Not Britain, but the land before Britain. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, the island we know today was part of a vast stretch of land called Doggerland. It connected Britain to continental Europe, a green and vibrant landscape now submerged beneath the North Sea. This drowned world once held rivers, lakes, forests, and entire communities, a place modern archaeologists uncover only through fishing nets and underwater sonar. The first Britons crossed this land. They were Western hunter-gatherers, small bands of humans who arrived as the ice melted and the world warmed. Their remains have been found at places like Gough's Cave, Somerset, Kendrick's Cave, North Wales, Cheddar Gorge, Somerset, and in 2018 the Natural History Museum in University College London shocked the world when they extracted DNA from the skeleton known as Cheddar Man, dated to around 10,000 years old. The results, published in Nature, Ecology and Evolution, revealed that the earliest Britons likely had dark to very dark skin, blue eyes, and curly dark hair, a genetic profile common among Western European hunter-gatherers, but utterly unexpected to the modern imagination. This was the first great revelation. Britain's earliest people were nothing like the later populations who would dominate the island, but around 6,000 years ago, these early hunter-gatherers were joined and slowly replaced by a new migration, the Neolithic farmers. A landmark study published in 2019 by the University of Huddersfield in Nature, Ecology and Evolution showed that up to 75% of Neolithic British ancestry came from groups originating in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. These early farmers brought wheat, barley, sheep, pottery, and a lifestyle fundamentally different from that of the hunter-gatherers. They built some of Britain's earliest monumental architecture, long barrows, causewayed enclosures, and the earliest phases of what would become Stonehenge. But then, around 2500 BCE, everything changed. A monumental shift unlike any other in Europe's prehistory. In 2018, a groundbreaking study published in Nature, led by researchers from Harvard University and the University of Cambridge, revealed the truth. The arrival of the Beaker culture caused a near-complete genetic replacement of Britain's population. Up to 90% of the ancestry in Bronze Age, Britain shifted within a few centuries. This was not speculation. This was hard genetic data from more than 400 ancient samples. The Beaker people carried ancestry linked to the Pontic steppe, and their appearance in Britain coincides with dramatic cultural change. New pottery styles, new burial traditions, and the mastery of bronze. Where the Neolithic people went, disease, displacement, or gradual assimilation, remains one of archaeology's enduring mysteries. But what is certain is this: modern Britons carry more Beaker and steppe ancestry than any other influence before the Romans. After this came the culture known today as the Celts, but the DNA once again rewrites the story. Traditional history taught that the Celts migrated into Britain en masse during the Iron Age between 800 and 100 BCE, but a 2021 study by the University of Oxford and Trinity College Dublin, analysing hundreds of Iron Age genomes, concluded that there is no evidence of a large Celtic migration into Britain. Instead, Celtic culture spread much like technology or religion spreads today, through social networks, prestige, and influence rather than conquest. The Iron Age Britons were largely descendants of the earlier Beaker and Bronze Age populations, with only subtle genetic admixtures from continental Europe. This is the second revelation of the British DNA mystery. Celtic identity in Britain is cultural, not genetic. Rome arrived in 43 CE, a mighty empire with armies, engineers, administrators, and global trade routes stretching from Africa to the Near East. But the Roman genetic footprint in Britain is surprisingly faint. A study published in 2022 by the Museum of London, titled the diverse Roman London, sequenced the genomes of individuals buried in Roman London. They found people of North African, Middle Eastern, and Southern European ancestry living in the city. But outside urban centres, the genetic impact of Rome was minimal. Roman Britain was a military occupation, not a mass settlement. But when Rome withdrew around 410 CE, a new era began, one that would change Britain forever. The Anglo-Saxon migrations? For centuries, historians debated the scale of Anglo-Saxon settlement. Some argued it was small and elite-driven. Others believed it was massive and population-wide. In 2022, a definitive paper published in Nature analysed 460 ancient genomes from Anglo-Saxon cemeteries. The results were clear. Eastern and southern England saw major migration from continental Europe. Burials in Cambridgeshire, Suffolk and Kent revealed individuals with 75 to 100% West Germanic ancestry, with genetic signatures linking them to what is now northern Germany and the Netherlands. Modern English people still carry 20 to 40% Anglo-Saxon ancestry, especially in the east and southeast. This migration reshaped language and identity. Old English became the dominant tongue, tribes became kingdoms, and the foundations of England were laid. Then came the Vikings, and with them another dramatic shift. In 865 CE, the Great Heathen Army landed. Historians knew this invasion was larger than previous raids, but genetics confirmed just how deeply the Norse integrated into Britain. A study published in Nature in 2020 titled Population Genomics of the Viking World analysed more than 400 Viking-era genomes. It revealed that parts of northern and eastern England, the Danelaw region, show clear signatures of Scandinavian ancestry. Yorkshire, East Anglia, Lincolnshire all bear the genetic imprint of Norse settlement. This is especially visible in Y chromosome haplogroups common in Scandinavia. Autosomal DNA clustering closer to Danish and Norwegian profiles. Place name distributions. Linguistic remnants in dialects. The Vikings didn't just raid Britain, they lived in Britain. They married, farmed, minted coins, ruled towns, and left a cultural and genetic legacy that remains visible today. But the next migration was the most famous and perhaps the most misunderstood, the Norman conquest of 1066. William the Conqueror's army changed everything, politically, legally, linguistically. But genetically? Almost nothing. Multiple genetic studies, including a major one published in PLOS Biology in 2020, conclude that Norman genetic input into Britain is minimal, less than 5% in most areas and sometimes undetectable. They were a ruling elite, not a migrating population, but culturally their impact was seismic. French vocabulary fused with English, feudalism spread, castles towered over the countryside, and the English aristocracy was entirely remade. All while the genetic makeup of the common people shifted barely at all. And so we reach the modern era, when technology finally allows us to see Britain not as one nation, but as a mosaic of ancient peoples. In 2015, a monumental study in Nature titled The Fine-Scale Genetic Structure of the British Population created the most detailed genetic map of Britain ever made. Based on 2,000 individuals with all four grandparents from the same rural area, the study revealed 17 distinct genetic clusters, each shaped by ancient migrations and medieval borders. Its findings include Welsh populations preserve the oldest ancestry on the island. Cornwall and Devon show a sharp genetic divide despite geographic closeness. Northern England reflects heavy Viking influence. Orkney Islanders carry up to 25% Norse ancestry. Southern England is strongly shaped by Anglo-Saxon migrations. Scotland contains unique signatures from Pictish and early Gaelic groups. Eastern England remains genetically distinct from the West. Britain is not one people, it is many peoples, each with their own long genetic memory. And so the British DNA mystery remains what it has always been. Not a hunt for a single origin, but an understanding that Britain's story is a tapestry woven from countless threads. The Western hunter-gatherers who walked Doggerland, the Anatolian farmers who built the island's first great monuments, the Beaker warriors whose arrival rewrote the island's ancestry, the Celtic tribes who reshaped its languages without conquering its genes, the Romans who ruled without settling, the Anglo-Saxons who gave birth to England, the Vikings who carved their presence into the east and north, the Normans who conquered power but barely touched the population. Every age layered itself upon the last, and the DNA of modern Britain contains echoes of every one of them, a genetic chronicle of survival, migration, adaptation, and transformation. The truth written in blood is simple. There is no original Britain, no pure lineage, no single founding people. Britain is a palimpsest, a story endlessly written, erased, and rewritten, a land formed not by isolation, but by connection. And as science continues to decode more genomes, uncover more burials, and revisit more histories, one thing becomes clear. The British DNA mystery is not a question with one answer. It is a reminder that identity is ancient, layered, and complex. A story, thousands of years in the making, whispered by bones beneath the earth, and carried quietly in the cells of every person living on the island today. This is the mystery. This is the legacy. This is the true story of Britain. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a comment, a like, and subscribe for future videos.